In today's conversation, I would like to explore with you three quotes from Neville Goddard that I've been reflecting upon lately that have been very helpful. And these are also quotes that I have been reflecting upon with clients and friends, and they too find them to be very helpful. Now, the interesting thing about this information here is really one or two quotes or sentences is really all you ever need to realize the truth, to realize that you are the source of your own fulfillment. And once you accept the fact that you are fulfilled, what happens is everything appears to be in harmony with you. The people, the environments, the different experiences in life, everything appears to be in harmony with you. And by that it is meant not in conflict with you. As you may hear me say sometimes, you are that already, which is, you could say it this way if you would like, already at the highest vibration, or already at the highest frequency, or the highest state of consciousness, or as I like to say it, you are the ideal that you desire to be. So in this world here, everything appears to reveal the truth of who you are. I've mentioned this many times. I studied this information and applied it since 2004, and it has never been known to fail. It's the same thing again and again and again, over and over again. You, through desire, know that you are already that which you desire to be. You imagine yourself being that which you desire to be, whatever it may be. Successful business, wonderful lifestyle. You imagine yourself already having what you desire to have, having the conversations even you desire to have, and you see them reflect accordingly. The exact things that you imagined that they would say, they actually say it to you. The exact things that you imagine yourself doing, you actually do those things. And when they happen, you're like, oh my goodness, I totally forgot about that. Perhaps you might think that. Sometimes I think that. And then in that moment, I'm thinking of one situation right now. In the moment, you remember that you imagine yourself being that already, having that experience. So the three quotes I'd like to explore with you today from Neville Goddard and share my personal experiences in relation to it are as follows. Number one, because of your belief in external things, you think power into them by transferring the power that you are to the external thing. Realize you, yourself, are the power you have mistakenly given to outer conditions. Now, as I say sometimes, this world suggests nothing. What a person seemingly suggests, what an environment seemingly suggests, what the news seemingly suggests, etc., means nothing, absolutely nothing, because you, in your own mind, are the one that suggests what these seeming suggestions suggest. So it doesn't matter what I say to you. You're the one in your own mind that is relating to what I'm saying. And how you relate to it is key. Is it from the premise of being who you desire to be? Or are you suggesting to yourself that you are not who you desire to be? Then, like he said, it generates what I call interference patterns, where reality, and you are reality, you are that perfection prior to any of these thoughts in mind, reality appears to be distorted. So, for example, over the years, one of the beliefs, the condition that I had in mind that I released was what Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich as fear of criticism. Fear of criticism. There was a time where I would constantly, it was interesting. It was an interesting phenomena. As I always say, you are aware of your behaviors, you are aware of your thoughts, you are aware of your emotions. It was very interesting to me that prior to doing what I would want to do, whatever it may be, I would look around to see who is looking. And I would think what they think. I would think that they think that I should not do what I genuinely want to do. Now, for a period of time, I thought that this was completely normal until I came across this information. So this is what he means by because of your belief in external things, you think power into them by transferring the power that you are to the external thing. And it is done in mind. So lately, I've been discussing on my school group, and if you haven't seen the school group, I'll link in the description to it. The hermetic mind. The hermetic mind. Now, hermetic means sealed, airtight, sealed. That is exactly how mind is. As stated in the Hermetica, 2 gifts were bestowed upon humanity. They were mind and speech. And those 2 gifts are equal to immortality. Now, the hermetic mind is actually completely sealed from seeming outside influences or outer conditions suggesting meaning. Because we know that's illusory. It is only the individual in mind who could use one of the gifts, inner speech, to relate to appearances and do what James Allen had said in his wonderful book, As a Man Thinketh. He said the individual's mind may be likened to a garden, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. Whether cultivated or neglected, it must and will bring forth. If no useful seeds are put into it, then an abundance of useless weed seeds will fall therein and will continue to produce their kind. So the individual in mind is relating to appearances, and they're imagining what these appearances mean to them. And as mentioned, prior to whatever it is that I would do, start the conversation with the person, talk about what I wanted to talk about on a video, call up the prospect, whatever it may be, I would think, what will people think if I do this? And I would imagine people in my mind and argue with them. I would imagine people in my mind suggesting I can't do these things. And in the earlier stages, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't allow myself to do what I genuinely desired to do. So I stopped thinking that way. I realized, as James Allen had mentioned, I'm putting these thought seeds in mind that do not represent me. They do not represent you. You are that perfection, fulfillment, completely fulfilled. Existence, consciousness, bliss. So, do these thoughts represent you? Or do they generate resistance in the body? I trust you see this. It's illusory to suggest that this world suggests anything. It does not. So the hermetic mind is completely sealed off to outside influence. And the individual might think, well, I would like to cultivate the hermetic mind. See, that is just how mind is. You've been given the 2 gifts, mind and speech. You can only think in your own mind, and you can choose whatever it is that you desire to plant in your mind. I personally recommend intelligently cultivating the mind. If the individual is identified with the belief that they need approval or validation from people prior to whatever, starting the business, starting the conversation, whatever it may be, if they need that approval and validation, then they go looking for it in their mind, and then physically it played out as theater. I'm looking around. And then let's say if I saw somebody and they're looking in a particular way, I might say, oh, I better not do it because I might offend that person there. Well, I can assure you from personal experience, when I stopped identifying with those conditions, I do the thing, whatever it may be, and whoever that person is does nothing. So not only does that person not stop me, let's say I did go and start a conversation with that person. I'm thinking about a networking event in business. I can assure you, having that conversation with that person was not thinking that thing. So the other quote that I want to discuss today is this one here. It says, only as one is willing to give up their present limitations and identity can they become that which they desire to be. So related to the first one, the limitations are illusory. They're conditions in mind. The mind is actually fundamentally sealed off. The illusion that it is not is generated by those conditions in mind, where the person looks around to see what other people are doing before they do what they genuinely desire to do. So we stop doing that, and then we live freely. We live how we genuinely desire to live. And it just so happens to be in perfect harmony. And why do I say that? Because I am fulfilled, you are fulfilled, we are fulfilled. Every individual is completely fulfilled. As I remain as I am, completely fulfilled, and not identify with these thoughts of lack or limitation, what happens is, like we discussed in the video that I released on Thursday, if you haven't seen it, I'll link in the description to it. Mushin no Shin, Japanese Zen martial arts. Mushin no Shin, mind without mind. No mind interference. No interference patterns are generated, and reality is experienced as all people being in perfect harmony. I trust you experience this. I call it flow. Everything appears to flow in perfect harmony with you. Not us versus them, this versus that. That's illusory. There's no such thing. There is no other. There is only God. That's what he means here. Only as one is willing to give up his present limitations and identity. So the present limitations are illusory. They are these conditions that the individual places in their mind. And as mentioned, no matter what a person says to you, the news, books, etc., you're the one imagining what that information means. You're the only thinker in your own mind. The hermetic mind is completely sealed off. So congratulations, you have the hermetic mind. Airtight. The person may think, no, I don't, because I worry about what people think of me before I do something. Fear of criticism, as I had mentioned. I realized that that was a condition placed in mind for whatever the reason may be that just appeared that way. Body and emotions would play out the theater. The people would play out the theater. And it belonged to the personal identity. That is what he's talking about here. The limited personal identity, which is not true identity. True identity is you. You are that pure awareness. Still I am prior to all these conditions. And your real nature is bliss, happiness, fulfillment. How do you know? Through desire. As he had mentioned many times, you are already that which you desire to be. And James Allen also in his wonderful book, As a Man Thinketh, said, to desire is to obtain. To aspire is to achieve. So again, to desire is to obtain. Desire means having. Who can suggest otherwise? You can only imagine. Well, you can think of people, conjure up people in your mind's eye and argue with them, or scenarios, etc. I don't do that anymore. I have no interest in that. I grew up in an environment where we would physically fight. Now, some might not think that. They might think, well, Joseph, I can't picture you doing that. Well, I can't picture myself doing that right now either. That's just theater generated by that conditioning in mind. So, I no longer identify with that conditioning. As mentioned, the individual is aware prior to the conditioning playing out as theater. They're aware of their thoughts, their emotions, and their behavior. And they can see if they're identified with these conditions in mind. It may appear as a fight response, a flight response, freeze response, fawn response. There was no desire to fight. I just thought that freedom was threatened. Freedom is here now as I am. Or as I say sometimes, find out who is and be as is prior to condition. Conditions fall away and there's no fight response. Just flow. A conversation, yes. Not based on, as James Allen had also mentioned in his wonderful book, The Heavenly Life, based on argumentations of the intellect. There's no desire for that. So again, he said, only as one is willing to give up his present limitations and identity can he become that which he desires to be. Otherwise, a person may be fighting with appearances. As I always say, you are here to live your life. You are completely fulfilled, so you are here to live a fulfilling life. That infinite fulfillment is infinite. No matter what you imagine, there's always more to it than that. There's always more fulfillment. And I don't worry about how much more fulfillment there is. I know that I am completely fulfilled, and I came here, you came here to experience your fulfillment, whatever it may be. Wonderful relationship, wonderful business, wonderful lifestyle. And it just so happens to be in harmony with everyone. The law just is. Everything just is. It is the way that it is. So you find out what is, which is you, and you be as is, which is you. And all I did was, as he says here, third quote, you rise to a higher level of consciousness. So again, you are at the highest level of consciousness. That is you, highest level of consciousness, highest frequency, highest vibration, highest state. That is you. You are already that. By, he says here, taking your attention away from your present limitations and placing it upon that which you desire to be. Now, this is an interesting way of saying it because you are already that which you desire to be. You are completely fulfilled. You are that still I am presence. That is what you are seeking for your whole life. That is the infinite love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and you are that now completely fulfilled. So, how does the individual then take their attention away from their present limitations, which can sound like a force-based thing to do? Well, as I've been mentioning lately, you can do nothing to know that you are completely fulfilled in a moment. I had a conversation with one of my clients, and the realization is, I am nothing, I am everything. I am nothing, I am everything. Now that might be confusing. I am nothing means, as Bruce Lee had said, and I relate this over to Mushin Noshin, there is no opponent because the word I does not exist. I am nothing, immediate bliss. And attention then naturally goes on what is related to your vision. I trust you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. This is not new. This is just something that I encourage more so. I encourage more so because I've been a consultant for many years now. I've been a business consultant since 2013 formally. Prior to that, I had an IT business, which I built to success. And I've worked with thousands of clients, and I found that rather than trying to convince them, rather than trying to persuade them, rather than telling them what to do, I realized that they already know the way. All I do is know that they know the way inwardly, because I am that pure awareness. They are that pure awareness. Together, we are that pure awareness in perfect harmony. There's only I am. So I then do nothing. As stated in the Bible, I can of myself do nothing. The Father would then do it the work. Now, what naturally happens is they come up with their own solution. I had a conversation with a client the other day as well. He was in a situation where his business was, and I'm not going to say the numbers for his confidentiality, yet his business was at the position of, let's say, do we want to continue with this business and this business model? And essentially, one can say I brought him into the flow, but I don't take credit for that, honestly. I don't bring people into the flow. I just remain in flow by not identifying with these illusory conditions. They just appear to reflect accordingly. Because if I think, nuance point, if I think that I do something in order to put them into flow, put them into this frequency, put them into that state of consciousness, that could even sound like a thing to do. I do nothing. What does it practically look like? Do I sit there and stare at them on Zoom? No, conversation flow. It's inwardly I am completely fulfilled. I know that. Inwardly, I know that he is completely fulfilled. There's no fear of criticism or any kind of conditioning in mind that's popping up and generating illusory imaginal activity about conflict, suggesting separation. There is no separation, as there is no other, as Bruce Lee said. There's no competition. There's no opponent, because the word I does not exist. So now, what ends up happening then is, you can say he appears to relax into the flow. I don't even think that he was stressed out. This is a nuanced point. They show up already completely fulfilled. Because remember, as I mentioned earlier, the hermetic mind, only I can imagine what these appearances suggest. They suggest nothing. Now, you can call this advanced metaphysics if you would like. As I mentioned in the earlier stages, when I heard about the hermetic mind, I said I would like to cultivate the hermetic mind. Now, I realized that the hermetic mind is the way it is. Mind actually is completely sealed off from outer influences. It just does not appear that way through that conditioning in mind. So we release identification to that conditioning in mind, and then you see that it makes perfect sense that only the individual in mind can suggest what these appearances suggest. So these suggestions that appear to come from the outer world, as I mentioned, the news, this, that, they're seeming suggestions. You know, in the Bible it says, behold, I send you forth as sheep amidst the wolves. Be shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves. Innocent as doves, I am completely fulfilled. I am here to experience the fulfillment of my Father. Divine inheritance. And shrewd as serpents, discerning. I can read between the lines. I know what I suggest in relation to the appearances. No matter what appears, I know what I suggest in relation to appearances. And that is what matters. That's the key right there. That is what matters. I can assure you it matters, because you'll see it appear. And those thoughts that suggest otherwise appear to disappear. They no longer appear anymore. And so do the corresponding appearances. I didn't do it. I can of myself do nothing. The Father would then do it the work. And you and I are no different. Because you are that pure awareness. I am that pure awareness. Your real nature is complete fulfillment. Well, as I say sometimes, you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. That is what you are seeking for your whole life, and you are already that. So now that you know that you're already that, you can relate to the appearances accordingly, and then experience your divine inheritance with increasing frequency on a continuous basis. As far as the senses perceive, it appears more so. So now, what happened to my client? Well, his entire business turned around. Again, I don't get into the specifics for confidentiality, but let's say the numbers were significant, very significant. From going to, I don't know if we want to continue this business anymore, to making more in a month than people make in a year in their business. That's the power. There's a wonderful book. It's called Power of Kabbalah by Yuda Berg. It says, do not react. The Creator sends delight. Delight just is. Truth just is. And you know truth. You are that truth. So I personally recommend relating to the appearances accordingly, or as I call it sometimes, really thinking for yourself. Really thinking for yourself. That's what he's saying here. You rise to a higher level of consciousness by taking your attention away from your present limitations, or seeming limitations, and placing it upon that which you desire to be. The truth is thy lamp, and the truth is within. And you are the truth, existing now as that still I am presence, completely fulfilled. Just abide as that truth. Or as we discussed recently in another Neville Goddard video, he said it in The Power of Awareness in the Effortless Way chapter. Be still and know that you are that which you desire to be. What remains in the silence when there is no thought, no suggestion of limitation? We know thus the limitations are illusory. What remains in the stillness, in the silence? You alone remain existing as that which you desire to be. You experience complete fulfillment, as he had mentioned. Be still and know that you are that which you desire to be. You are still all that you desire to be. And when I say you can do nothing to be, or you can do nothing to know that you are that which you desire to be, silence is enough. In a meditation, you know that you are that which you desire to be. In flow, you know you are that which you desire to be. Prove the point. You don't identify with these conditions. Attention, as he said, naturally flows to what is in harmony with the vision. You could say you celebrate life. You see God everywhere, as ultimately only God alone exists in perfect harmony. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You can say, I know that I am that still I am presence, the eternal, supreme, absolute perfection, fulfillment, which appears more so with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.